still Harold local. I'm a member of the board of the local summit.
Phaser's just done.
Nina Restia-Cuddy, member of the board of local summit.
Good morning, Shirley Hilton, Mamaroneck resident.
Melinda Lehman, president of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Public Task Force and summit board member. Sabrina Fiddleman, summit board member and member of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force board.
Jane Elgin, councilwoman, town of Mamaroneck, and lover of the Larchmont Post Office.
Yay!
Good morning, I'm Susan Riley. I'm the director of the Mamaroneck Public Library. We have an author series that's starting this Sunday, and I'll pass around flyers if you're interested.
Jeff Megan, local resident, lived in all three communities.
Bob Hayden, Summit Board and at home on the Sound.
Jeremy Inkpen, Washingtonville Housing Alliance, Hartsdale resident and lover of the Hartsdale Post Office.
Yes!
Lynette C., member of the Summit Board.
Stella Marroquin, director of the Mamaroneck Tax Center.
Please get on. Advocate for
John Gitlitz, Summit Board and Hispanic Resource Center.
Jeffrey Wiener, summit board.
Good morning, Leslie Johnson, manager, consumer and industry contact, United States Postal Service.
Great.
Elizabeth Sanger, Summit Board and lover of the Mamaroneck Village Post Office.
Yes! Thank you.
John Bradley, summit board and at home on the Sound.
Kay Francis Richards, Summit Board, Washingtonville Housing Alliance, and Martin Luther King Committee. Janet Buckbinder, Summit Board and Radar.
Judy Dabra, Summit Board, Executive Director of Cancer Support Team, and resident of Village of Mamaroneck. And I just wanted to point out to a conference. Okay. Sorry. A conference on November 2nd. I have brochures. It's focused on healthcare, palliative care, evolved needs, human needs in a changing world with lots of very good. So I'll leave those.
Company radon.
Mount Victor.
George Latimer, New York State Assemblyman. I love the post offices from Bedford to
Yes, thank you.
Greg Howells, Rye YMCA.
Anna Benoit, director of community services and housing for the town of Mamaroneck. Lorraine Walsh, trustee, Village of Larchmont.
Good morning, Keith Yiser, Mamaroneck Public Schools, Summit Board member.
Go Yankees.
Mary Lee Berridge, Summit Board, Women's Club, Interfaith, King, and keeper of the money. Please let's see me if you have not done your proper whatever. Thank you very much. And I love the Larchmont Post Office.
Irish and Green Hope Community Service.
Any new speakers, Summit Board, at home on the Sound, Larchmont neighborhood.
Yvonne Trott, Mental Health Association Board advocate for foster care children, and I've been going to Mamaroneck Post Office all my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm now going to turn the program over to Harold Wolfson as a brief introduction.
Well, I would just like to say a few things in regard to, in regard to things we may remember from civics lessons early on in our life. First of all, the United States Post Office was established in 1775, so it comes very early in the history of our country. And the first postmaster was Benjamin Franklin. The post office has its roots in our Constitution. It is constitutionally recognized in Article 1, Section 8. The post office was established as a self-sufficient, self-supporting entity. It receives no money from the Congress, but it gets lots of oversight from the Congress. So it is now a $65 billion business, a $65 billion business. How many people work for the post office?
We have approximately 600,000 employees.
It is a $65 billion business with 600,000 plus employees. And it is in crisis. It is in crisis today, and that's why we're meeting here. I'm turning the meeting over to my partner in this program, Nina Cuddy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Morning, Nina.
Our speaker today, our principal speaker, is going to be George Flood, who is the communications program specialist for the
Northeast
area. And George has 30 years of experience with the post office in advertising, consumer affairs, government relations, public affairs, corporate communications, and he's also a member of the United States Postal Service's National Crisis Communications Team. And I think we're really lucky to have him here. We also have by him is Debbie Jones, who is the district marketing manager, and also Dan Coderre, who is from Nina Lowy's office, and we'll have a statement from Nina Lowy concerning the current status of legislation regarding the post office, which who knows what happens after the election, where it does and doesn't go. We know the world's changed. We know that first-class mail is down. It's a given. We know that everybody uses email. We know that more packages are shipped. What we don't know is what is the impact on our postal service? What is the impact on our employees? What is the impact on the kind of service that we're going to have? And what can be done to address this changing industry? So that's why we thought that it's actually Harold who gets the credit. Was germinating in his brain this concern over this, and we thought that it was something that all of us would like to hear more about. So with that, I will turn the program over to George, and I think you have a better mic.
How's that? Testing one thing, we're good. Nina, I think I do.
Yeah, I think so.
And Nina, thank you for that kind introduction, and a special thank you to Harold for making all the arrangements for allowing us to be here today. Let me begin by saying we are not going to close the Mamaroneck, the Rye, the Larchmont, or any post office in the area. We are not going to close the post office. I also want to thank my colleague Deborah and Leslie for joining me today and helping me possibly help me field some of the questions at the conclusion of the presentation. I hope to have some time for some Q&A at the end. This morning I'd like to share some thoughts with you about the United States Postal Service, where we're at, the status, and our plans to return the organization to profitability. And also to talk about the Mamaroneck, Larchmont, Rye, and some of the post offices in the area. And at the end, again, we'll have some Q&A. You know, when I'm a New Jersey boy, I live in Scotch Plains. I grew up in Union County, graduate of Kane College. I'm used to geography over in New Jersey, as well as I worked for years in Manhattan, so I'm kind of used to Manhattan. But to come out here, obviously I had to run Google Maps. So when I typed in the address, I began to think the old Boston Post Road. This road out front was designated by the New York governor in the 1600s, Governor Lovelace, as a post road to deliver the mail, take the mail by post rider from New York up to Boston, hence the Boston Post Road. So I think it's rather appropriate that we're here today talking about the status of the Postal Service and the future of the Postal Service. beyond the stats and the figures and facts that we're going to share with you today, I know we're going to share some information that would be beneficial to many of you here, almost all of you. I did hear that a lot of people love the post office, and I'm sure use the local post offices. But we're also going to talk about how things have changed and some of the expanded access opportunities that we do have out there. For example, you can buy your stamps. You don't have to go to the post office. If you're over at the CVS right up the road, you can actually buy your stamps at the customer service counter. So that's just a tip that we're going to be, some of that information we'll share with you today. As I give the presentation, I'm going to be framing things according to perception and reality. I'm going to be talking about the difference between perception and reality of the Postal Service, what most people think and what actually is. And borrowing a page from Harold's history, if I went to most groups and I said, by a show of hands, how many believe Benjamin Franklin is the Postmaster General of the United States? Most people are going to raise their hand. Wrong. The Postmaster General, the first Postmaster General of the 13 colonies was Benjamin Franklin. As most of the historians can tell you, the U.S. Constitution was not ratified till 1787 and put into effect in 1789. So from 1776, when we declared our independence from England, we had 13 original colonies, almost like 13 little nations. Again, it wasn't the United States until 1789. And the first Postmaster General of the United States, in case you ever do go on Jeopardy, was Samuel Osgood.
I want to recount.
Benjamin Franklin indeed was the father of the Postal Service and the first Postmaster General of the colonies. What's in a name, right? So that's how I'm going to frame my remarks this morning. To begin our discussion on the financial status of the Postal Service, let me clear up a perception between the difference between perception and reality as far as the Postal Service receiving taxes. The Postal Service does not receive tax dollars. We are totally self-funding through the sale of postal products and services. We do not receive tax dollars for operations. One small caveat, we do get a small appropriation from the government for the free matter for the blind, which we offer free mailing privileges for the blind, as well as the overseas mail-in ballots for the military. That's the only caveat. But again, perception, the Postal Service gets tax dollars, wrong. The reality is we are totally self-funding. Another perception. The Postal Service is inefficient and the Postal Service cannot compete in the private sector. Actually, we deliver, for example, efficiency, we deliver 40% of the world's mail with 10% of the world's postal employees. Again, 40% of the mail we handle, we deliver. We only have 10% of the world's employees. And bear in mind, too, that every year in the U.S., we add almost 1 million deliveries. Over the last decade, we've actually added 17 million deliveries. And however, in the last 10 years, we've been able to reduce our staffing, reduce our human resources costs by 200,000 employees. So about a decade ago, we had about 800,000 employees. We are now down to about 600,000. And if that's not efficiency, I don't know what is. And when it comes to competition, this is really an interesting fact. A lot of people will be shocked. And maybe I'll phrase it in a question. Does anybody know who FedEx's #1 customer is? Deborah, you can't answer. Does anybody know who FedEx's #1 customer is?
Shout it out.
Exactly.
Yes.
United States Postal Service is FedEx's #1 customer, and we are one of UPS's top customers. Let me explain. Every year, FedEx and UPS pay the Postal Service. Also, on the flip side, FedEx and UPS pay the Postal Service to deliver over 400 million packages of its ground packages in residential areas for those two companies. And again, in turn, the Postal Service contracts out with UPS and FedEx for what's called airlift. We put a lot of our mail on their airplanes. They're good at that. We're good at handling what's called the last mile, actually delivering the mail. All right, let's get into the meat of it and talk about the 300-pound gorilla sitting in the room. The status of the Postal Service. The perception is the Postal Service is going bankrupt. The Postal Service is not relevant in a digital world, and we are in trouble. Part of that is correct. We are in trouble. However, let's talk about some of the reasoning. Like any other business in America, the Postal Service is responding to the demands of a changed economy. Over the last couple of years, we've lost about 20% of our mail volume. But unlike other businesses, when you hear about some of the actions that we're taking, it's big news. Usually real big news, and I can attest to that as being a media relations professional. The size and the number in the stories can be daunting. Millions, billions of dollars. Consider the fact that the Postal Service is the linchpin in a $900 million mailing industry. And for those economists in the audience, that's about 6% of the gross domestic product in the U.S. Now, when I say the mailing industry, I mean the Postal Service, printing houses, mailing houses, transportation, printers, paper companies, all those allied resources that go into the mailing industry equals 900 billion with a B, not an M. That is approximately 6% of the gross domestic product. Also consider, the Postal Service as a $65 billion company, 95% of the Fortune 500 companies do not make $65 billion. So again, when you hear about some of the things that we're doing, reducing costs, we're consolidating facilities, changing some of the hours at some of our rural post offices, it's big news, and it hits the papers. And a lot of people have the perception we're closing post offices. We are not closing post offices, wholesale post offices. We did announce about a year or two ago some plans to close smaller post offices, but we've gone back and rethought that, and what we are doing now is something called a post plan. The post plan involves matching hours in rural post offices to what's called the customer demand, the amount of revenue, the amount of transactions, the amount of people that are coming in. We're reducing some of those hours, and that's called the post plan. And that's essentially, we're taking offices in rural areas with traditionally about 8 hours of business during the day. We're reducing it to 6, 4, or 2 hours, depending on the amount of customer traffic that's coming in. But again, we're not changing the post office box lobby hours, and we're not changing the collection hours in the collection boxes in that town. Now, to address some of the fiscal challenge that we are facing, and we are facing significant fiscal challenges. One of the key drivers is the 2006 Postal Accountability Act. That bill was passed back in 2006, and that as one of the tenets of that piece of legislation, that the Postal Service had to pre-fund our retiree health benefits for the next 75 years. Now think about that for a second. There is somebody who hasn't been born yet. Not only haven't hired him yet, he or she has not been born yet, and the Postal Service is going to pre-fund their retiree health benefits for the next 75 years. No organization, no federal agency, no company, nobody is required to do that, and that is a significant nut, if you will, for the Postal Service, to the tune of a pre-funding payment of $5 billion. Yeah, most of you probably seen in the New York Times and many of the papers across the country and on the news that we did not make that last payment of $5 billion. Now that is a significant issue for us, and we are working with the legislators in Washington to try to get that changed. And I know Dan's got a statement on that in a few minutes. One of the other things, yes, the internet has a big impact on us. Our first-class mail volumes are down significantly to the tune of about 25%. Overall mail volume is down about 20%, and we recognize that things are changing, but the mail itself is still a valid entity, a valid communications tool, a valid way to pay your bills, and a valid way for the small business owners to market their companies. Remember, even though our revenue and our mail volumes are down, we're still handling 164 billion pieces of mail. 164 billion. If you tried to count to 1 billion in your lifetime, you probably couldn't do it. I wouldn't recommend trying it, but you probably couldn't do it. But every day, the Postal Service handles approximately 554 million pieces of mail every single business day. So mail is valid. Mail still has value. Mail is, if you talk to advertising and marketing experts like my friend Deborah here, in the Postal Service and outside the Postal Service, direct mail and direct advertising is a critical element within what's called the marketing mix. Interesting, the Direct Mail Association in the United States did a study, and people are 4 times more apt to buy online if they have a catalog sitting in front of them at their desk. 4 times more apt to buy something online if you have the catalog in front of you. And I thought that was a real interesting study that they did. Now, getting back to some of the things that we are doing to try to address those things, the pre-funding, the decline in mail volumes, and the changes in the marketplace. People are still doing business with us, again, 164 billion pieces of mail a year. What we're doing is we've gone out and we've taken a look at our network. We have approximately 37,000 retail outlets out there, post offices. And to put that in perspective, that is as much as Walmart, Kmart, and McDonald's put together. If you added those 3 together, and those are the top 3 retailers in the country, you added them together, we would still have more retail outlets than they have. In addition, we have approximately 450 mail processing centers. And the reason I mention those two different operations and facilities is that we're taking one of the things we're doing to address the changes in the marketplace and our financial status is to take a look and see what we really need. And we've come up with what's called an area mail processing plan. And we are taking a look at reducing our mail processing plants from about 450 down to about 250. And over the next 2 years, we'll be moving forward with some of those plans. Actually, the one that's here locally is over in Stamford. We're talking about moving those operations down to the White Plains plant, which is right up the road on Westchester Avenue. And as we do that, we are a very employee-friendly company. We've offered early outs, and we will be offering people reassignments according to the national contract. So if the perception is that by reducing the number of facilities that we do have, we're going to have wholesale layoffs, that is not the case. Again, we're a very employee-friendly company, as my mortgage company and my other bills. You have a I'm sorry. Yeah. Before you add, if you do have a question, just stick up your hand.
I just have a process question.
Yeah.
why does, if you're mailing something in Mamaroneck to another address in Mamaroneck,
Right.
why does it have to go to White Plains first to be able to come back?
That's a great question.
And
Yeah.
does it say, did you save employees locally by doing that? Is that
If it's done for efficiencies, however, you have to be able to maintain that overnight service to do that. And speaking of that service, we do an amazing amount of self-evaluations. So we can be more customer friendly, so we can be more efficient, so we could, serve our customers better. Specifically, we have a huge contract with IBM Consultants, and they regularly measure the on-time performance of the mail stream, of pieces of mail. They actually go out and they have testers across the country seed the mail, and then they time the performance. And usually our performance is up in the 95, 96 percentile, and our goal is 97 percentile. On the customer side, we actually have mystery shoppers, and Deborah gets those reports every day, right, Deborah?
That's right.
We have people that go into the post office and will time how long it takes to get service at the counter. Our goal is 95% in 5 minutes or less.
That's correct.
So if you go into a post office and it's longer than 5 minutes, you need to complain. And we'll,
Call me.
And we'll talk about how to talk to the Postal Service. Yes, ma'am.
Is there truly a danger of we expect you to lose Saturday mail?
You know what, I think that's a great question,
Yeah.
but I also think we can hold the questions until.
Okay.
then.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way. You're right, Nina. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, I was editing pages of so we talked about the realignment of our retail network to adjust some of our hours. We talked about the realignment of our mail processing network, and that mail processing network is pretty much transparent to the general public. One thing that we will be doing, we did over the summer adjust our first class mail delivery standards. We went from 1 day to 2 days in some of the areas. So that is one adjustment that you might see. The power of the mail is nothing mysterious. People that work in advertising and marketing can verify that advertising is very effective, especially when combined with some of the other venues, print advertising, radio advertising, TV advertising. But for the most part, the local businesses are not going to be able to afford TV advertising. So one of the things, in addition to reducing costs and becoming more efficient, we're beginning to try venues to increase our revenue. We've come out with new products. One of the new products is something called Everyday Direct Mail Retail. And that allows local businesses to advertise their products and services at a very reasonable rate. You don't have to maintain a mailing list. You don't have to put somebody's name and address on there. You just use what's called simplified addressing on the piece. It says postal customer, and it's advertising mail, by the way. Deborah and I don't use the J word. However, it's been found to be very effective, and people do want to receive mail. And for those people who do not want to receive mail, there is a mail preference list that you can file your name with the Direct Mail Advertising Association if you don't want to get certain pieces of mail. So Deborah, you want to talk a little bit to kind of shift, talk about some of the new products?
Good morning. I'm going to ask Leslie to give out the folders, because we have a lot of the products and information within the folders. I always say that this is a glorious day. And Harold, you can't answer this question because we were blessed to have Harold at our Greater Hudson Valley Postal Customer Council. That's an entity within the Postal Service where the mailers and the Postal Service get together so we can help each other to grow our mutual businesses. But one of the products, but before I say that, what's the reason why this is a glorious day? Someone answer. Why is this a glorious day? The sun is shining, yes, but even more importantly,
You're in Mamaroneck.
we are alive. That's right. We can get to anything else. That's the reason we are alive. That's right. It's wonderful. George was just speaking about every door direct mail. It is an economical and convenient way to get your message out. A lot of political organizations can speak to the constituents. Vote for me. Not for 88 cents or $1.10 per piece, and you can mail out a flat size piece or higher, 12 by 15, for 14.5 cents per piece. You can't beat that. You can target specific carrier routes when you do so. We have some information in the brochures, I shouldn't say brochures, but the folders that tells you if you only want to mail to carrier route 1, it may only cost you $27. Or if you want to mail to all of the carrier routes within Larchmont or Mamaroneck or Rye, it may cost $700 for the entire postal zip. But it's an economical way to do so. We also encourage our customers to use the holiday stamps. We have the Santa Sleigh stamp, we have the Holy stamp that's coming out, but the breast cancer stamp. $73.5 million has been achieved from customers like yourself buying the stamp for cancer research. So we encourage you to continue to do so we can help out. Move to Competitive. Has anyone heard about the Move to Competitive program with the post office boxes? The rentals? Aha. We have free enhancements that you should be receiving because you're already paying for it. With the Move to Competitive at the Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and Rye post offices, we have what's called real-time notification. You can get a text message or an email stating, you've got mail. Ah. So you can save that $4.09 per gallon driving to the post office. We also have street addressing. If you need UPS, like Amazon or other companies to mail to you, they can mail it to the post office because you're using the street address. We also have one more, signature on file. You can sign a waiver. We will put the key in your box. You'll go to the big box to pull it out and get your mail. You don't have to wait at the window and sign each time. So we are doing all of that for our customers, a convenience for the customers. And if you're a first-time post office box rental, we have something that's called the Baker's Dozen, 13 months for 12 months. So you're getting 1 month free. We're trying to do everything we can, and even free keys, you don't have to pay. Please go to your post office, talk to them. If not, you can call myself, George, or Leslie, and we'll walk you through that process. It is so easy, convenient, and it's free. Remember that keyword, it's free. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. And that proves there is no such thing as a free lunch. Well, dovetailing in some of Deborah's remarks, a lot of the things that we are doing are not just cost cutting and efficiency. We are trying to come out with new products and services that are customer friendly, that customers want, that customers do want to use. And also, one of the most, and I did say I was going to share some good tips with you, one of the most important, easy to use, convenient products and services that we offer is our website, usps.com. That's usps.com. Gets about 1.3 million visits a day. It's received a lot of what's called eGov, or electronic government awards. The reason I mention that website, on USPS.com, just about anything that you can do at a post office, you can do on USPS.com. You can order stamps. You can actually ship a package by using our click and ship service. You can actually print out the postage on a piece of paper, slap it onto a box. You can even schedule a carrier pickup for free the next business day without ever leaving your office computer, your office or home computer on your keypad. You can look up zip codes, postage, everything under the sun that's related to the Postal Service is posted on there. So think about that for a second. You don't have to go down to the post office. You can save gas, you can save time, and you could save money, because there are, in our click and ship service, some of our services do have discounts for shipping, and we'll give you free, Deborah, don't we give free tracking and tracing for
Yes.
click and ship?
Yes.
We'll actually do free tracking and tracing for you if you use the click and ship service. If you do have some of your family members that are in the military and serving overseas, we do give discounts for priority mail packages going overseas, and if they are in the military, it's actually considered domestic postage. However, you would more than likely have to put a customs form on there. But USPS.com, just about anything you can do at a post office can be done at USPS.com. Some of the other convenient services that we do offer that, that help our customers out is stamps by mail. You can order your stamps through the mail. Your local carrier could give you a form. There is no upcharge or surcharge for it, and the postage is paid for the order form. So you just fill it out, give it to the carrier, and within 2-3 business days you'll get your stamps fulfilled at no upcharge. So if you spend $12, you get $12 worth of stamps. It's a great service. I mentioned earlier our Stamps on Consignment program, where you can actually get stamps at local grocery stores, banks, pharmacies like CVS. I went online just to take a look at some of the CVS's in this area. It's absolutely amazing. I think I counted, how many? There were like 10 CVS's in this area. It's like, oh my goodness. It's like, I didn't say the Walgreens, but you can actually buy stamps at face value at their customer service counter. Wells Fargo is another local bank that you can actually go into the bank and order your stamps from there. You can actually order stamps by phone. You can call 1-800-STAMPS, plural, 24. 1-800-STAMPS-24. Don't dial stamp 24 because you will get a phone message that you may not want to get. So you can imagine what that phone line is. So it stamps at 24. Automated postal centers, which we now call self-service mail and ship centers. Try to say that 5 times fast. Who came up with that?
I don't know.
And we have one in Larchmont, correct?
Yes,
Right?
indeed. Yes, indeed.
We have one in Larchmont Post Office where you don't have to wait online. If you go into the post office, you can actually go over to the machine and ship your packages, buy your stamps, look up zip codes, whatever you want.
The appeal box, right?
And we have plans underway right now that we are going to consider getting the next generation of that machine, and we're actually going to begin to take a look at external locations for that, like malls and shopping centers and things like that, to put some of those kiosks, self-service kiosks, into that, to make it easier for our customers to do business with us. This whole plan is in an effort to make it easier for customers to do business with us and address some of the financial, challenges that we do face. We are very confident that our business plan that I talked about earlier, about restructuring our networks, reducing costs, becoming more efficient, and also if we can get that legislative change, that the Postal Service can return to profitability. The Postal Service, don't let anybody tell you or give you the perception that the mail and the mailing industry or the Postal Service is dead. It is not. 164 billion pieces of mail a year, $65 billion a year company, is the linchpin of a $900 billion mailing industry, is not going to go under. Again, we need to be more efficient. We have a plan in place, and we hope to get legislative change. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. And I think, Nina, do we have a few minutes for Q&A?
We do have a few minutes, but I think before
Dan.
we do that, we're going to let Dan read Nita Lowey's statement.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here with George and Deborah and Leslie. I work with Leslie on a regular basis, so it's finally nice to put a name to the face. Unfortunately, Congresswoman Lowy couldn't be here today, but she asked me to represent her and give a short legislative update on the status of the Postal Service in Congress. As you know, the U.S. Postal Service currently faces a number of financial challenges. Congress must take action to help USPS raise revenue while reducing costs, but different members of Congress have different ideas about how to help the U.S. Postal Service. There are two major pieces of legislation that have been considered, or the most prominent pieces of legislation that have been considered during this Congress. One of them, the bill that sort of started in the House was introduced by Congressman Darrell Issa of California. He introduced H.R. 2309, and this bill would do a number of things. It would move to 5-day delivery after 6 months after the enactment of the passage of the legislation. It would transfer to the U.S. Postal Service the $11 billion pension fund overpayment. It would lower the USPS employee health benefit and federal employee group life insurance contributions. It would alter collective bargaining conditions to consider the financial condition of the USPS. It would gradually increase postage rates for some mail classes that the USPS carries at a loss. And then there's another piece of legislation that's actually passed the Senate, and it was introduced by Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut. And that would also transfer to the USPS the $11 billion pension fund overpayment. It would reduce the USPS's health benefit costs over 10 years. It would permit the USPS to negotiate with its employee unions to opt out of their health benefit fund and establish its own employee health care plan. It would alter collective bargaining conditions to consider the financial condition of USPS, and it would reduce the USPS's authority to close mail processing facilities. Both of these bills are currently pending in the House of Representatives, and obviously, as many of you know, Congresswoman Lowy is a member of the minority in the House, so she currently doesn't necessarily know when these pieces of legislation will be considered, if they'll be considered at all before the end of this Congress in January. But each of these bills, according to Congresswoman Lowy, I know she thinks that these have both good and bad points. And it's important for the House and the Senate to find common ground and help to reform the Postal Service before a shutdown threatens postal employees and consumers alike. And I believe she thinks that clearly there's a need for reform, but it shouldn't be done on the backs of postal employees. USPS and its employees have come together to come up with steps to place the Postal Service on firmer ground, and she's working very hard down in Washington, and she hopefully some sort of agreement will be reached, but it's unclear when that will happen, whether it's going to be right after the election or during the next Congress. But I apologize in advance that I won't be able to answer any questions for you. This is a very complex topic, and there obviously, as I mentioned, everything's very fluid. There are many complex factors, but I will certainly hang around after this breakfast, and actually the Congresswoman won't be representing Mamaroneck and Larchmont after January. But if you have any sort of views on the way that she should vote on postal reform, I'm sure that many of you have strong views on this matter. I'd be happy to take them down and pass them along to the Congresswoman. And obviously, if you have any difficulties with your postal service, I'll be going.
And your name is?
And your home phone number.
I want to thank the panelists, and we're going to pass around. I'm kind of exercising a prerogative over here. I do want to ask a question about the legislation since you were talking about it. The 2006 Act that you both have mentioned sounds on its face to be pretty draconian. to have a prepayment of 75 years on the health benefits of retirees, as I think George pointed out, some of whom are not even born. And the question I have is two. The first is, what was the reason that that particular act was passed? What was the background that caused such a severe measure to be passed by Congress, if you know? And the other thing is, even with all the wonderful products you described for us and all the improvements and efficiencies, without a change in the legislation, is there any way that you actually can become more financially secure? It's all yours.
Sorry.
Okay. The first part of the question is probably better answered by our legislators, but let me just take you back in time. Back in 2006, the mail volumes and revenue in the Postal Service were continuing to climb. In 2006, we leveled off and began to drop. So that was, I would say it was 2006, that would have had to have been discussed early on in Congress at 2005. So at the time, it was, I guess, thought to be a good idea. And Senator Collins was the sponsor in the Senate of that bill. And I can only hazard a guess that it was passed as a way of balancing the budget, in my opinion, of balancing the budget, helping to balance the budget. So the answer would probably be related to some sort of budgetary issue for the government, and I can't say that for a fact, and I don't speak on behalf of the government, but that would be my own personal view on that. The second part of your question, can we exist without the legislative change? We more than likely would have to go onto the government budget to begin getting tax dollars if that legislation does not get passed. Correct.
Thank you. There was a question earlier.
Yes,
It was yours. Let me get to the mic.
We keep hearing about closing down the post office on Saturday.
Yeah, one of the things that, and let me be accurate about that, perception of reality. The question has to do with, the question was closing the post office on Saturday. What the proposal is on the table is to end Saturday delivery, but keep the post office open on Saturday. And as you heard from Dan, a lot of the bills that are being suggested, or legislation suggested, do not want us to do that. So we will keep the post office open. If you do want Saturday delivery, you could rent a P.O. box. P.O. boxes will still get delivery on Saturday. The post office will be open on Saturday. It's street delivery that would be curtailed on Saturdays. So again, that's something that's on the table, being discussed. And you can call Las Vegas to get the odds on it.
My question is involving the post office and the law, okay? When I was a kid, what the drug addicts would do would burn or do something with the mailboxes, so they would get sent to a federal rehab program. So that was the thing that we kids knew, that they would, let's say, throw something burning into a mailbox or do something in front of a policeman so they could get a federal rehab program. Now, could you talk about the law enforcement, anything with the post office is a federal crime? Sorry,
Sure.
Could you talk about that type of thing?
Yeah.
It's like fun.
And I've actually been involved with some of those and answered a lot of media inquiries over the years about kids throwing firecrackers and other things around the July 4th holiday. Regarding, I would not recommend that, by the way. It is a federal offense. It is a federal offense. And there is a separate branch of the United States Postal Service. It's called the Postal Inspection Service. That is the law enforcement investigative branch of the United States Postal Service. They are investigative professionals. You do have to have a college degree to become a postal inspector. And they help us provide the American people with a secure and safe means of communicating through the mail. So if you do drop some firecrackers or a match or something else into a mailbox, I can assure you the postal inspector will be following up quickly afterwards. And you do not want to go to have a federal offense, by the way, because usually you could get prison time.
Are there more questions?
And by the way, as we're passing the mic back, the Postal Inspection Service is actually the oldest federal investigative law enforcement branch in the country. Preceded the FBI for years and years. Yes.
I gather from what's being said, not only by you but also Congresswoman Lowy's representative, that the business plan that you all are operating under is developed by congressional committees or by Congress itself? And if that isn't the case, who develops it?
The Postal Service operates by law, Title 39, as a separate branch, as a independent federal agency with executive branch oversight. And that executive branch oversight means that we have a board of governors that oversees us, that are appointed by the president and nominated by the president with advice and consent of the U.S. Senate.
Okay, so you have the political board which develops policy and business planning, is that correct?
No, it just oversees our business and policy planning. So
who in the first instance prepares the business plan that gets served up subject to oversight and review?
that would be the executive committee of the Postal Service. That would be the senior officers, the Postmaster General, the Deputy Postmaster General, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, a guy named Joe Corbett, and that executive committee, the Chief Marketing Officer. They develop the plans and the strategies, and it would be approved by the Board of Governors. But the day-to-day operation, we're an independent federal agency. We operate on our own. Now, that having been said, the way I try to explain the Postal Service to most people is we're like a utility. Obviously the utility companies aren't making money sending power to some very small Midwestern town or even some towns in New Jersey, New York metropolitan area. We're probably losing money on that. But like a utility, we have to provide a universal service, so that in some instances it's going to be counterintuitive to most people that have studied Management 101. It doesn't take a Harvard MBA to figure out you're paying a postmaster in a very small rural town $30,000 to $40,000 when they're only bringing in $30,000 to $40,000, possibly, or even less. But you can't close it because we are mandated to provide universal service, very much like a power company.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Quick question.
Hi, I wasn't here with the introductions. I'm the pastor of Mamaroneck Methodist Church here.
Reverend.
And I just wanted to say that I have been supportive of the Postal Service. I really would like to call it the post office. I don't think it's much of a service sometimes. And I say that, I had relatives who were, my grandfather was a letter carrier, a rural letter carrier, and other people who were who worked for it. And I think it has been a great organization in the past. My experience has been that the service aspect has gone down, and dramatically so. And I could go into the chapter and verse about how I won't use your bulk mailing anymore because it's so difficult and customer unfriendly in many ways. And I think the last straw was when I went to buy first class stamps, a rare item, at the local post office, and they didn't have any. And it's great that I can go to CVS and now we get them online, and I suppose that's been the intent, was to drive us away from the post office to other outlets. because perhaps that reduces your cost. But it has the effect, in my mind and in my experience, of being difficult for the consumer. I don't know if that's my only my experience or other experience in the room, but that's been my experience.
Number one, I would agree with you that bulk mailing is very challenging. I've seen some of the rules and regulations. I have friends that sat on the committees that went through all those rules and regulations, try to make it easier. It is a challenge. It is a challenge, especially for a local church, a small business. You know, and responding to that, the Postal Service came out with products like Every Door Direct Mail Retail, which I would recommend that you use. It's a very easy product to use. You don't need a mailing list. You don't have to worry about a lot of regulations. There are some things that you do have to be concerned with, and it's only about 14.5 cents a piece. You don't have to have a mailing list. You don't have to put names and addresses on the piece. You could just print the piece, put postal customer on the piece, and just turn it over to the local post office, you know, separated by carrier route. As far as to address the issue that you raised about we're trying to drive customers away, I would disagree with that. What we're trying to do by, we call it expanded access, offer stamps and other services at other retailers and local banks to make it easier for customers to do business with us, for us to handle the more complex transactions. And when I mean complex transactions, something like an international package, which there are a lot of regulations that have to be to follow. Do you have to put customs forms on there to sell money orders, things like that that we can't do through our expanded accesses. But we are not trying to drive customers away. The goal, it may appear to be that way, and you know, and I can believe that, but the goal, the honest, true goal, is to expand access in a low-cost way to make it easier for our customers to do business with us, and that is the intended goal.
I truly believe
now,
that.
it may have that unintended goal of, yes, driving, you know, and look, I took marketing, you know, 101 when I was in college. You know, you want customers to come in the door because you want every opportunity to sell to that customer, and yeah, so it's a very delicate balance. You know, it may have that perception, and I don't disagree with it, that we're trying to drive it, but the goal is the goal is to make it easier for customers to do business with us. And I think I answered, Reverend, did I answer all your questions?
Yes.
I don't want to be struck by lightning as
I'm in sales, not management, you're all right.
Right on, the question right over here.
Yes,
George.
Hey.
And piggybacking Rev, and I like that Rev. When you start downsizing in terms of, are you taking into consideration? I see the Postal Service similar, and I have an agreement with Rev that you have management, and are you allowing the managers of the local post offices to dictate how the services should be provided? Case in point, right now with the traffic low, Stop and Shop, ShopRite, A&P, all the local supermarkets will have 7 aisles open right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right after 5 o'clock, there's only 3 aisles. Now, are the post offices still being managed that way? Because on Saturday, and I'm glad that they're not closing the Mamaroneck post. I live in the village of Mamaroneck,
Mm-hmm.
and we are still a very walking community. And one of the entities in our township, regardless of paperless, green, and everything else, is that we walk to the post offices on Saturday morning. We frequently visit the local CVS's and the various banks on Saturday morning. We're still running on that because they gave us the opportunity for these things to be open. The post office has a line on Saturday, but today at 3 o'clock there is no line, but all the windows are open. So who is managing that? Managing it top down, or is it bottom up? Are they allowing the managers of the various post offices to dictate what and how the customers should be serviced?
The interesting answer to that is we have machines at our retail counters. They're called point of sale or POS units, and it actually measures the amount of transactions, the amount of foot traffic, the amount of revenue, etc. And we manage those retail units by the data that comes off of that. So they are mandated to provide our customers that come into any post office 95% of the time you should be getting up to that counter and doing business in 5 minutes or less. So that they manage from that data from that POS unit. We also, to manage that from a top-down perspective, we actually have a national contract, and I believe it's with Moritz. It used to be
Synovate now.
Synovate. It's a market research firm, and they actually send what's called mystery shoppers into post offices to see how long it takes to do business. Is the clerk asking the right questions? Is the clerk greeting? Are they inquiring, suggesting, and thanking the customer? You know, good morning, you know. And then yes, also they'll ask you if you need a book of stamps today or something like that. And those mystery shoppers fill out a report, they send it back, they're consolidated, and they go to the local postal districts above, looking down. And people like Deborah and Leslie and some of her staff actually go through those reports every single day to make sure that 95% of our customers are getting taken care of in 5 minutes or less. Are there going to be times when the line's backed up? Yeah. But again, the goal is 95% of the time, 5 minutes or less. And if that, and also, if that's not happening, if you are going into Mamaroneck or any post office in this country and you're not getting taken care of in 5 minutes or less, we actually have a toll-free number you can call. It's 1-800-275-8777. That's 1-800-ASK-USPS. So it's 1-800-275-8777. And you can complain. You could share a suggestion. You can even tell us you don't like the color on the new Santa and Space lamp. Whatever you want to share with us, you can complain. And you can compliment our employees, and we do get compliments through that 1-800 number. You can also go on our website that I mentioned earlier, what I neglected to mention about the website. You can actually complain online. You can go on to USPS.com, click on customer service down the bottom of the home page, and then send us an email, and a consumer affairs professional will respond to you, like Leslie.
And it's in the package. It's in the package.
Yes.
And it's in the package.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for all your comments. And I was going to say, now we all know we go to the post office, we can kind of insinuate that we're a mystery shopper.
You know, when I go into my post office, they think, they say, hey, George, are you mystery shopping today?
But to piggyback again on the other comments, does each post office have a limited amount of inventory? Because I've had the same experience where you go in to get a first-class postage stamp and they don't have them, which doesn't make any sense.
I'd like to know which post office doesn't have a first-class stamp. I mean, that's like McDonald's not having fries. There might be a specific one that you may not get, like they run out of holiday stamps or something like that. But if you go into a post office, they don't have a first-class stamp. Call 1-800-27. You will get action, I guarantee it. That's to me, that's absurd. That's like McDonald's not having fries.
If you can't get to me, get to Harold or Nina, because that's my concern. If stamp is not available, a specific one is different, but stamps, period, you need to call me. You really need to call me.
We've heard a lot about what I used to peddle when I was a management consultant, a lot about the technology of improvement. There are certain branches that are proud to show that they're regional award-winning branches year after year, and they have spectacular customer service. And there are certain branches that don't have those awards up behind the counter. So this question really is about best practice sharing, and given you are a contract shop, probably a union shop with embedded employees, which can be good because you have very long-term experienced people. But what are you doing to share those management best practices so that two branches 5 miles apart don't have such spectacular differences in level of service?
we're internally, and you wouldn't see that on our internal, what we call our blue website, which is only employees have access to. There's a section on best practice, there's several sections on best practices, but there's one devoted specifically to improving customer service and best practices, and that's on the website. On our internal website, you wouldn't see that externally. Secondly, we have quarterly management meetings where we bring in senior managers like postmasters and to review best practices, things that worked and things that didn't work. In addition, we have a ideas program that we ask our employees to send in ideas to improve the way we do business. And finally, the best people to tell us how we're doing, like remember Mayor Koch, how am I doing, is our customers, and not just telling us in a verbal way, but coming in and spending their hard-earned dollars on our products and services. They're telling us what they want and the way to do it. And again, I circle back to, if you do have a suggestion that improves the way we do business, a suggestion, a complaint, just want to share some thoughts with us about the Postal Service, you could go on our website, send us an email, or call that 1-800 number. So there are various ways internally that we do share best practices through meetings, telecons, as well as on our internal employee website.
We also, provide weekly webinars for our internal team so that they can find out what's going on and they share best practices, and then we discuss concerns from the customers. How do you make it a better experience for the customer?
And I still want to find out who didn't have those first class.
Yeah, I want to talk to
Well, that discussion we'll have on the side. Yeah.
More than one.
Okay.
One question which I probably know the answer to. We have a crazy quilt pattern in this area, as well as in northern New Jersey and other places, of municipal lines, dotted lines of communities. And the zip codes do not conform to those dotted lines. So we have Scarsdale Post Office covering parts of New Rochelle, Mamaroneck, Yonkers, and Eastchester, as well as the actual village town of Scarsdale, and that's multiplied out in 100 different ways. Is there any ongoing effort, any organized effort within the Postal Service to look at the jurisdictional lines and make any adjustments between what the zip code covers and what the governmental jurisdiction is? Not that we haven't made a mess of it in government, but a joint effort might rationalize the system a little more.
Certainly that's the case in thousands of communities across the country where the zip code doesn't match the municipal and sometimes the county lines. That's actually a not that rare an occurrence, and we're always willing to sit down and listen. However, just to emphasize, the zip code was designed for the processing, transportation, and delivery of the mail. Nothing else. It's not there to provide community identity. It's not there to provide insurance rates, although I realize that it is used for that, but that's not what it's designed for. That having been said, we will sit down and listen to any reasonable requests, and the way I would suggest that happen is write a letter to the local postmaster or senior manager in that area.
I think we probably have time for one more question. Two more questions? Going once?
I'll make the answer shorter, Nina.
Two items. One is the website. Recently, I was trying to track a package that was being delivered to me. And on the tracking number, I needed a legal pad to be able to write all those numbers down. I have, in no other of your competitions are there that many numbers to write down. Can you do something, that first question, can you do something about the number of the numbers and how many of them there are to write down? And also, when I was on that website, there was no easy way to get assistance when the tracking number didn't work. I ended up calling my local post office because I had that phone number, thankfully, and they were able to find it, look up the package and find out what was going on. Thank God for our local post office. But that's question number one. And question number two is about bulk mail. I am on the library board of Mamaroneck, and we had a bad experience where in the past, to let voters know when our election date is, we have always brought it to our local post office, and they would put the postcard in at everybody's residence. After the shift to the White Plains bulk delivery, we delivered it to them, and it didn't come. Some people got it the day after the election, some people got it on the day of the election, and some people got it before. And this is all the same zip code, one zip code. And we got a lot of flack at the library for these voter notifications not being delivered in time. And we had no control over it. We were not told how long it would take to have them delivered, and it was not accurate. So, thank you.
In reference to your first question, the number of numbers that you have to write down, usually like a company, I use Amazon.com, they have what's called a manifest. They're delivering packages to a number of people. So the first number is their control number, and within that control number, they may have 5,000 pieces. You don't have to write down all of those numbers, just your number. It should tell you the en route information, whether or not we attempted delivery or the delivery date. If it doesn't, I'll have you call Leslie's office.
No, this is a package being sent to me.
Sent to you.
So they gave me, the company who was sending it to me gave me 11, is it 11 number? It's more than 11, I think.
It's 20.
20 numbers I had to write down.
We have so many packages in the system, so you're going to get a 20-digit number, yes.
There needs to be, is there anything you can do?
To change that number. Not at this time, but
No.
we can look into that.
It's a little onerous.
Okay, now the second part, I'm sorry, your second question, the bulk mailing. That's not an easy process, and I do apologize if you had any inconvenience. We have something that's called convenience drop point. If you're going to mail 4 trays twice a day, you can drop that at your local post office. We've consolidated over 200 bulk mail centers into 11 sites. One, we have efficient clerks that understand the process. And with a bulk mailing, it's really a work sharing program. The more work you do, the lower rate you have to pay. Now I know in reference to the election date, the closer you get to the election date, and I'm sorry that they didn't give you the proper information, but the closer that you get to it, because it's a standard mail piece, it's not a first class mail piece, it runs through a different processing. It's not next day. It may be 2 days, 3 days, 4 days down the line.
We gave it to him a week, like 5 days.
5 days before, then it should have been delivered, especially if it's local. What I can do, I'll give you a number, which is the business mail entry number, which is 914-697-7019 or 7054. Those are my bulk mail technicians. They are excellent. They will walk you through the process. If you have any issues, you'll tell them when you need it delivered. And not that they can guarantee delivery, but they can work with you to try to get your mail in the system.
Can we go back to the old system of just bringing it to our local system?
Only twice a day, 4 trays each.
No, it's once
So
a
you-
year. Can we do it?
How many trays do you bring in?
It's going to every resident.
But
How many trays?
I don't know. How
It has to be a maximum of 4 trays.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, you have to come to the White Plains site.
Or
And I'll get your information so we
Get
can
her
discuss that,
contact
yes.
Or if you
Yes.
do a direct mail, maybe
Yeah.
perfect.
Now, the other option for you could be every door direct mail. Lower rate, you don't have to go through all of that. You're sending it to every resident or business on a carrier's route. That may be the process for you to, especially with election mail. And you take it to your local post office. Goes right there, doesn't come out, and it gets delivered. Okay.
I have two, I understand I'm the last questioner, and rank hath privileges. One question is, I have 2 questions. One is, how are the Mamaroneck and Larchmont post offices doing in terms of their ability to cover their costs by their sales volume? Are they profitable? The two, and how is the demand at the 2 local post offices? Question 1. I'll wait for the answer and then have the second question.
It's down 20%.
Both are down 20%?
Both down approximately 20%.
Are they covering their costs as far as you know?
I couldn't answer that accurately. I could get back to Harold.
Thanks.
Yeah, because we actually have a calculation, number of employees times a certain amount per hour, and yeah. But you know,
You need the buy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there is a way to calculate that, and we do take a look at that, but that's not actually the make or break for us. Meaning that we are mandated to provide universal service. So whether Mamaroneck is making money, or Rye, or you know, Dover, Delaware is making money, that's not the issue. The issue is that we're there to provide universal service. Many of our post offices are actually money losers, but again, as a very similar to a utility, as I discussed with the gentleman earlier, you know, we're mandated to provide universal service. That's our mission. We understand that. We understand at times that there are going to be some money losing. There's going to be some money losing areas, but overall, we are mandated to make a profit and to cover our costs, which we are dedicated and committed to doing.
Thank you. Question 2. The New York Times, a while back, but this year, carried information that your friends at UPS and FedEx, over a period of years, have lobbied Congress and thereby prevented the U.S. Post Office from starting new services which would be profitable and would offset costs. And these new services therefore have not been introduced. I'd like to comment.
We are partners with UPS and with FedEx. We are one of FedEx's largest customers, and they too are one of our big customers because we deliver, as I mentioned earlier, about 400 million ground packages for them. You know, we are aware that those two companies, and UPS in particular, has a very big staff of folks on the Hill that go over visit, and we cannot. That's against the Hatch Act for us to lobby. So I can't give you a clear black and white answer. It's a very gray area. We are aware of that. Our goal is to try to come out with new products as quickly and as fast as we can, and we are prevented at times by laws that kind of restrict us. The 2006 Postal Accountability Act an Enhancement Act was mentioned earlier.
I think we're just about done now. I want to thank all the participants, most especially, of course, George, who did put in an awful lot of time and effort, and we are grateful. It was very informative and very interesting. Thanks to Dan and all the representatives from the Postal Service. It was really interesting. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.